Hi guys and welcome to the Quinn podcast. Here we give you a look through the eyes of the most successful athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs and influencers on this planet. Be sure to check out all of the content at quinnpodcast.com. Enjoy the episode. Yeah, I saw I read up on you. The background is in engineering. All right.
Yep, that's correct.
How would that influence the real estate and the sales aspect later on?
Oh yeah, it definitely did. But engineering, when we talk about later, you talk about performance. There was a lot you had to learn about performance through engineering.
Tell me about it.
I think the biggest thing was when I went to Arizona State University, there was no competition. It was pretty easy. But once I went to grad school, you had to compete against the best in the world, right? Because in order to make it to the United States, you had to be the best from your country. So India, Korea, Taiwan, China, Sweden, Nigeria. To make it to the United States, you got to be the best of the best. And so I had to learn actually how to step up to the occasion. Because what worked at ASU did not work in graduate school. So you have to actually look within, dig deep, and figure out how to get the most out of yourself in order to not just compete, but beat everybody else.
Like in what way was it different?
I had to put in the hours. I actually had to put in the work. I actually had to study. So there's the networking component, but I actually had to study, right? I actually had to, spend long hours. There are times where I was in the computer lab until 3 o'clock in the morning and then riding my bike home, right? Riding my bike home at 3 o'clock in the morning and then coming back the next day to continue. So, looking at I had a full ride where they were paying me to go to grad school, and in my first quarter there, my GPA was so bad, I was like, I might not keep my scholarship. And so what do I have to do so that I can keep my scholarship, and then after that, thrive? So there's a lot of internal work. There's a lot of grit, determination. You can't kill me. This whole mindset that you have to have for performance.
It's an interesting one. When I got into college, choosing the direction I wanted to go, it's I'm in law school, right? So it was not so much what am I going to learn, but what's the mental framework I'm going to adopt. Engineering is totally different from law and business and everything.
Yeah.
It served you? You think you made the right decision doing engineering?
Well, no. Engineering has nothing to do with what I do now, but problem solving is still the same. But I would say really more the skills and experience, again, of knowing that I had what it take to compete against the best in the world gave me a little bit of confidence, right? Because first you start off and you get freaking humbled, right? Because you think you're pretty smart. You graduated, summa cum laude, Arizona State University. You think you're a badass. And then this is going from, I don't know, college to, professional. Or maybe not college to professional, but maybe regular season to playoffs. It's a different game. And, if you're going to step up to a different game, again, you got to dig deep to figure out what you're made of, because it could have been real easy to say, hey, you know what? I don't have what it takes to compete against the best in the world. I'll just go and get a regular job. People wouldn't say you're useless because you couldn't compete against the best in the world. Right? There wouldn't be any judgment. Maybe some disappointment from mom and dad, but that's about it. I could have given up, and no one would. I've never heard anyone say, "Oh, he went to grad school and he couldn't cut it." I've never heard anyone get judged for that. It's either they did it or you didn't, and then it is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
where did they came from in your instance, the drive and everything?
I think. Something was interesting I heard earlier today. If you want to be successful, just give up now, because that's not how it works. But if you have inner demons inside you that would drive you and push you, that's what it takes to succeed. So I think there are elements of some inner demons, whether through wiring or programming later on. Whatever put me together, I think has given me those the inner demons, the competitiveness, you can't beat me. I think that's all. I think that's, it's nature and nurture. Who knows how much is nature, how much is nurture? But I think being the oldest son of an immigrant family probably helps.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's for sure. No, it's fun, right? To always sort of dig deeper on that and see where people are coming from in that sense. I don't know. It's definitely there for me, like wanting to win, but I have no clue where it comes from. It's just there.
Well, if you're a competitor, if you're an athlete, yeah, you don't have to know where it is. I mean, there's actually there's a Strength Finders 2.0 where he talks about one of the strengths. One of my strengths is achiever, and it's interesting when you look at the achiever description in Strengths Finders. It says that you are a person that accomplishes things and desire to achieve, but you don't know why. And that's one of the descriptions, one of the strengths in Strengths Finders 2.0.
Okay. Yeah, sounds solid. That's a good one. I love that. Okay, then engineering. Take me through it, just the headlines, right? So you were there and you excelled, and then sales, real estate. It's completely different trajectory.
So
Take me through that.
I graduated master's degree, right? At this time, 2003, this December 2003 when I graduated. So I was interviewing for jobs a little bit before then. Nobody was hiring. The only company really hiring in the U.S. was Intel in Folsom, outside of Sacramento. And so I worked there. I applied, I got it, and I worked there only for one reason. Intel in Chandler, where I am right now, right? I'm in Tempe, but like the Intel plant that's right by my parents' house is like really like a couple miles that way. So I worked at Intel in Sacramento only for the sole reason of transferring to Intel in Chandler as soon as the spot opened up, right? And so that was the plan. And so I worked there for a year and a half. Spot opened up. I transferred here. I worked here for another 2 years. And then once I realized like the W-2 life wasn't for me, I was done. And I got into sales. I became a realtor. And that was actually not a smooth transition because going from engineering to sales is about as 180 degrees as you can. My whole life I went to good schools, right? Like my parents put me in a good situation. I went to good schools. I got good grades, went to engineering. Everyone for the most part, in my life were reasonable, intelligent people, right? They're fairly logical, rational people. That's been my exposure like most of my life. And then I get into real estate. And then, man, you see the entire broad spectrum of humanity. You see like people that are completely unreasonable, irrational, really don't understand how the world works, but are making important decisions about buying and selling a home. And you have to learn how to navigate with a person who is operating purely on emotions and no attachment to reality. And how do you get this person moving along? So I had the hard skills, right? Maybe they're called soft skills, but I had the skills to tell you how to design a circuit, how to get electrons to go from here to over here, right? Design USB ports, design hard drives for cell phones. I could do all those things because those are ones and zeros.
Right.
Dealing with emotions was something I had no ability to handle initially. It was like they would say they felt a certain way. It's like, what does that even mean? I had so many people that were, when I was showing homes as a realtor, they're like, it just doesn't feel like it's the one. I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? Right? Because they have this idea like, you walk into a home and it just feels like the home. So I had to learn how to process, how to deal with translating, emotions, and then how to respond with the right talk tracks.
Right.
To, again, help facilitate a transaction that's a person that's operating purely on emotions and no attachment to reality.
Would you say you were able to put those like emotional responses from those people, like you were able to datify them in a way?
Yeah, in time, right? Like in time, I was able to figure out like how to have these conversations. Now, I will also admit I got called out, at least once. We were like, hey, like whenever we should look at houses, you do this thing. It's like because this is what works, right? It's like you open the door. It's like, hey, like look how great this kitchen looks. Blah, 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 the bedroom, like look at his open layout. Like I always found one great thing about the house and highlighted about it. Like I always did that because that's what people needed, right? And funny enough, the person that called me out was another engineer. But everyone else, right, like they needed me to talk about how great the house was. And so I talked about how great the house was. And I wasn't lying, right? It could be a crappy house, but if it had a great layout, it had a great layout. I would always highlight the layout. right? Great backyard, great whatever it was. As long as they were looking for that and the house had it, I would highlight it. But yeah, it was definitely very monotonous over time. It was very engineered sales.
I can imagine. And
Yeah.
then wholesaling, right?
Yeah, wholesaling, that just became a natural evolution. Well, not natural evolution, something I discovered and fell upon because as I had success as an REO agent selling properties for banks, Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, Fannie Mae, and so on. I had success selling properties for banks, but foreclosures were dying off in 2010, 2011, 2012, whatever. And so I had to do something different. So I got into coaching. I hired a coach, and he talked about finding motivated homeowners. Okay, it's like, all right, how do I find motivated homeowners? And I started targeting, we buy houses fast. And what I realized was when I was finding motivated homeowners, I was finding really motivated homeowners, right? Not like slightly motivated. Like these people like need to sell now. And so for me, I had my guaranteed sale program. Your home sold guaranteed or I'll buy it. After a few houses, I was like, oh my goodness, like these people are demanding I buy their house. They're not okay with listing for a little bit. If it doesn't sell, that I buy it. They're like, I want you to buy my house now. And I did that, and it worked until I ran out of money. Because there's only so many houses you can buy, right? So after I bought a few houses, we bought more and more. But over time, like you just run out of cash. And once you run out of cash, like I need another way to exit these properties. And so we started wholesaling.
Okay, and then flipping them, right? What was it like dealing with those people when they're like that needy in that sense?
Those were actually not as difficult at the time because at the time there was not that much competition. There weren't that many wholesalers at the time, right? Like it felt like it was competitive then, but compared to today, it was nothing. It was a walk in the park. So, there was less competition. If you walked in the house, you basically got the deal. And second, I didn't walk into the house to buy the house. I actually walked in there to get a listing. And so because I was going there pushing for the listing, when I was buying their houses, it was like they were forcing me to buy their house. So it actually wasn't that bad because I was buying their house because they were demanding I buy their house. I wasn't selling anybody. They were selling me.
How do you look at that? Like, when was this? 15 years ago? 10 years ago?
10 years ago. Let's see. I bought the first one, I want to say 2012. So 13 years ago.
It just blew up since then, like competition-wise, or how you look at it compared to
yeah.
now?
I mean, so in 2012, I was doing it. It was fine. Over time, I want to say it wasn't until when did it actually get hard? I can't say a specific time it got hard because the truth of the matter is I wasn't really going that hard on it. I was buying houses. I was wholesaling them. I was wholetailing them. But it really wasn't my core focus. So I didn't really pay attention to when it got harder. I can only tell you that in 2018, when we started going into it intently, that it was harder than I recalled, if that makes sense. So I was kind of doing it as a side hustle. But I was like, okay, let's just do it. Like, let's do all the things to get more business. It was significantly harder than when I was doing my own as a side hustle.
It's funny, right? Having a personality like you where you're... I was watching a video, you were describing yourself as like a sociopath. That was funny.
Yeah.
Having a personality...
It's not inaccurate.
No, well, that's funny, right? And then going into sales in which you deal with so many different people. There was an advantage for you, in your opinion, or no? How do you look at that? Because it can go twofold, right? Some people, they just can't deal with it at all. They just crumble under it. And some people, they just don't really feel I don't know. It goes twofold in that sense.
So it was a disadvantage in that I couldn't feel their emotions, right?
Right.
A disadvantage there. But actually, in the long run, looking at things, sales is more empathetic than sympathetic, so it wasn't as bad. It wasn't as much of a handicap as I thought it was. So it was beneficial for me in two ways. First, being, borderline sociopath, rejections didn't hurt, right? If I wanted to buy your house, you tell me no, I was like, okay, well, that's your problem, right? Like, it's not my problem, it's your problem. So it never bothered me. That was the first thing. Second thing, because I wasn't emotional, I still could understand how they felt. So even though I couldn't feel your feelings, I could understand what you were feeling and why you were feeling that way. So as long as I can convey that, that's empathy, right? it sounds super cold. It sounds super scientific, sanitized, but people require that you understand where they're coming from more than they require you feel the feelings that they're going through. So in the long run, it's actually better to be on my side or kind of, detached from emotions than it would be, for example, someone that cries with the homeowners.
Yeah.
Like that's actually not beneficial because now your emotions are coming in, and when your emotions coming in, they cloud your ability to have good judgment.
Would you say a lot of business owners and high performers that are on the same end of that? Because I can remember like 5 years ago getting rejected by whatever, like a girl or something, and I still like sometimes think about it and I'm still like fuck, like it still hurts, right?
Yeah, I would say that most business owners have more attachment to it, but I think they also grow with over time. They develop the callus. So I was always kind of unemotional, undetached. I think everyone else that has success generally does experience some frustration, probably more anger really from than hurt feelings from rejection. But as a business, over time, you just realize this is the reality. And so then at that point, it's just a numbers game. So I think maybe in the beginning, we all go through it one way or another. But once you become a professional, you just understand rejection is just part of the game. And then you don't process the rejection. It's kind of like the best example I heard from a friend of mine was like when you go to McDonald's and the girl asks you if you'd like to supersize it or you like fries and Coke. She never takes it personal. She's just doing her job. And it's the same thing here in a business.
Yeah, that's good. That's for sure. Okay, so then in 2022, you exited the company. Wholesaling in just the wholesaling or like real estate in general? You're still investing, right?
In 22, I believe 22 is when I shut down my brokerage. So I had a real estate brokerage. We were somewhat of a big deal, right? But we shut it down because the reality was my heart was no longer in showing houses, listing houses. I mean, that thing died.
Your heart was in it?
That thing died a long time ago, right?
Okay.
Like once we saw how much money we could make in wholesaling, you're making 15, 20, 25, on a hotel, 50, 70, $100,000. It's pretty hard to show houses or to run listing appointments. It's really painful, right? Like the money for your time, the math no longer works out. And then you look at a brokerage. A brokerage is one of the worst financial decisions you can make, right? Starting a brokerage. And so, was it making me money? Sure. Why is that? Because realtors are bastards. They don't want the broker to make money. Like, if you look at the realtor model, working at a brokerage, their job, right? They want to make as much commission as possible, right? And they only look at commissions in one way. Oh, they don't look at commissions in multiple ways. They only look at as two things, right? How can I sell more houses, and how can I pay my broker less? Because the less they pay the broker, the better the bottom line, right? And so most realtors, I would put more than 90%, are just really bad at making financial decisions. In that, they choose to go to a broker that's cheaper versus someone that can help them with their business, right? And so I had a lot of realtors that would have success, and once they had success, they're like, well, Steve, we're paying you too much. We want to pay you less. And when I said no, because it didn't make sense for me for my time to do it, they go to some discount brokerage, which is fine, right? That's how they want to work. But if that's the reality, and as a broker, I'm commoditized, then I can't stay in this business. So I left. I joined Real. So I joined Real. It's a MLM brokerage, doing well across the country. I think last I checked, we're like 25, 30,000 realtors. Don't quote me on that. So decided to hang my license over there in 22.
What's MLM marketing like, just from compared to different brokerage?
So it's multi-level marketing, right? I mean, it's like I make money.
Sure, but like in what sense is it different for you?
Well, it's different in that I'm no longer responsible for day-to-day operations, right? Like,
okay.
I don't have to show up for an audit. I don't have to show up for an ethics complaint. I don't have to deal with the Department of Real Estate anymore. I am just a realtor in the eyes of the Department of Real Estate.
How do you look at the whole multi-level marketing game these days? I've talked to so many people about it. It's like,
yeah,
Is it just like a completely in the middle? Everyone's like 50-50 on it. I don't know.
I mean, it makes sense to me now. It didn't make sense to me when it first got started. EXP was one that I believe kind of really led the charge on the MLM side. It didn't make sense to me how this could work. It clearly does work. But once I got involved in it and kind of see how the math works, if you're not producing, then you don't get the downline, right? And so it actually doesn't cost them nearly as much as they thought it was costing them to run it. So for the MLM, they actually keep more because there's so many that aren't producing. When they're not producing, they don't have to pay out on the downline. So you only get if you do Amway, if everyone pays, right, you get a piece of the action. But the moment you stop paying Amway, you don't get the downline, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on the realtor side, it's if you're not producing, you're not actually selling houses, then you don't get a piece of the downline. So that's how that works.
Like I understand multi-level marketing with like a fitness product, for example, right?
Yeah.
But how is it different with real estate?
I would say it's not really different. As long as you're getting people to sign up underneath you, put your name on it, and they're showing houses, then for everything they sell, you get a piece, right? So, for example, if you were to join my downline, right, you have an 85-15 split. So you get a $1,000 commission. You keep $850. $150 goes to the brokerage, right? Well, the $150, that's 15%. Out of that 50%, I get 5%.
Okay.
So I get $500, and then the rest is divvied up amongst everyone else at the brokerage.
How many people you got under you now?
I don't know, not that many. 100.
It's pretty solid.
Like it was fortunate, right? I already had influence. I already had a brokerage. So it was pretty simple for me to hey, guys, we're doing this. Everyone go over here. So it's a good amount, right? If you're starting from scratch, it's a good number. But I had more than that when I had a brokerage. So for me, it's a step down.
Yeah, no, I see that for sure. And that's always an interesting one. Like people shutting down businesses when they sort of level up in their career, right? What's that like? You get people, everyone wants to buy it or no? I can imagine it doesn't really work that way in real estate, but what's it like shutting down a company?
It's hard. It's hard, truth be told, because it's an identity. Like for me, the brokerage was the one. Looking back now, it was the second hardest thing for me to close. At the time, it was the hardest thing for me to close. There's something later on we'll talk about. But at the time, it was the hardest thing for me to close. And the reason why was that I started it in January of 2013, which, for most people, this is irrelevant, right? But for me, I had my daughter in November of 2012. So, I still remember, bringing my little baby girl, who wasn't even 2 months old yet, to the grand opening of my brokerage. So, in a way, they're both your babies. One is your actual baby, but the brokerage is a business, and that's your baby. So I had two babies growing up at the same time, and it's like deciding at 10 years old, hey, this baby is no longer it's no longer good enough. We're giving this baby up, right? I didn't even give the baby away for adoption. We just, kind of ended it. So it was hard because you had the memories, all the people we worked with, all the agents you've recruited, trained, brought up, many left, going to masterminds. I hate to say it, sounds weird, I was a big deal in the realtor world. I was a big deal in the brokerage world, right? It's funny, people would say, there was a real estate school, and they're like, hey, what brokerage are you thinking about joining? And they were saying Stunning Homes Realty, right? So that was my brokerage. And the guy that's doing the training was like, oh, Steve Trang's company. So, I was known in a way, so it was hard to shut down something that you were known for.
But it was a logical decision, looking back.
Oh, it was completely rash. Oh, yeah, it was totally the right decision, right? Okay. If anything, I probably should have done it sooner. Really, when I tell people all the time, if I could go back and redo things, I would never have started a brokerage. It was one of the worst financial decisions I made, right? Not for the money component, although the money component, because the first 5 years you lose money. Really, it was just a waste of time. Like I was saying earlier, realtors are bastards. Realtors are some of the most disloyal people you're going to meet. And I'm going to say this, people are going to watch this, they're going to think Steve's a jerk. But you talk to loan officers, you talk to real estate brokers, you talk to title officers, they'll all agree, right? So, that being said, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't start a brokerage because realtors, 90+% are completely disloyal people. They'll just cut you with no hesitation whatsoever.
Yeah, cutthroat game, that's for sure. Okay, so
And by the way, not that different than an acquisition manager, right? Like people that buy houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we love the people, we train them. These are our clients, right? But like people in real estate, whether wholesaling or realtor, tend to be, on average, unless they find something to latch onto, generally a more lone wolf. So I was saying in general, right? We're all independent. I worked at a broker, right? And I was doing good until I was unhappy there. I was unhappy with the direction. I left. If you ask him, he would say Steve's a disloyal SOB. So, like, I'm not saying we're all terrible people. I'm just saying, I guess I am saying that, and at a high level, like, we're all out for number one.
Sure. No, but it's just purely money, right? Real estate is just purely money. When you're talking like private equity, for example, there are some sort of, even those guys are motherfuckers, but it's
they're probably worse.
Yeah, maybe. But there's some sort of like passion in it, right? They just buy, I don't know, fitness companies, for example, right? It's something they're interested in. But with homes, it's just money. So that's sort of the type of people you're going to attract. That's for sure.
Right.
That's funny. Yeah, for sure, man. How do you look at the real estate market today?
It's interesting. Right now there's a lot of optimism with the new administration.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot of optimism. I think a lot of us are feeling pretty good. Looking at, there were a couple of industry experts I got a chance to listen to recently. One was Bruce Norris. One was Habib. I can't remember his first name because it was his son. And they both felt pretty good about the market. They both felt like we're going to get 4% appreciation for the year of 2025, and the interest rates are going to dip into the high fives just for a month and like in the summer. I don't think they're wrong. But what's really interesting, we'll see. And this is pure speculation, right? I am not an expert in interest rates. And there's one thing you can say for sure is I've always been consistently wrong about interest rates.
Nice.
But what I'm seeing is that there's like this crazy non-zero possibility that we're going to have a balanced budget for the United States government right now with everything that's going on, right? And if that happens, bond rates will go down because you don't have to pay as much interest. And if bond rates go down, then the 10-year yield goes down. And if the 10-year yield goes down, then mortgage rates go down. And business owners' borrowing costs goes down. It can get really hot in this economy this year if we can actually balance the budget. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a non-zero chance right now, which is the most exciting thing for me in the longest time.
Everyone is just enthusiastic with this administration. It's like on every single, like I talk to people just in every business, right? Everyone's like excited right now.
Yeah.
Even here in the Netherlands, they're excited.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, we're doing everything we can, right? So we'll see what happens. But I mean, and I say we, I'm just throwing myself in there like I'm throwing throwing my name to a sports team, right? But it looks great. They're doing, they've far exceeded my expectations. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. If you had one like disruptor over the next decade, what would that be?
If I could
for real
have
estate,
what?
If you would bet on one disruptor for the real estate market over the next decade,
that's interesting. I mean, we had Investor Lift. Robert Wensley. He was just here, and he's basically incorporated AI all over his software platform, where you can find any buyers because AI would do most of the work. We got Michael Franke, who was here a couple weeks ago, where he's using AI to scrape all the public records. So every single day you get new foreclosures. And there's a guy I'm working with, Chris Bowl. He and I recently partnered up, where he's using AI to find buyers and sellers and pairing them. So it's tough to say. It's tough to say because there are so many people that are wanting to just gobble up their competition. Sure. And man, who wins in the long run, I don't know. But if you're not using AI, I would say, to your advantage, you're probably going to get left behind.
I feel like AI is like the real, like, it's starting to create a gap that's not closable. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I worry about it too. So yes,
Yeah.
I think
It's
AI
like,
is going to be a problem.
I don't know, 10 years ago, right? It's just knowledge. Like the guy that does better is just, sure, there are like personality traits, but it's just knowledge. He knows stuff. But now they're
He knows
creating
more.
systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. But now they're creating systems that you just, and they patent them, and then it's like, it's theirs, and you can recreate them, and it's like, it's done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can't. It's pretty hard to beat somebody with perfect memory, and that's what we're competing against.
Yeah. What else is happening AI wise in real estate that you're seeing?
I mean, I think finding foreclosures, finding buyers. I mean, I could say for sure, like we're using it quite a bit. You know, even just producing content. You know, I run, given the week, between 8 and 11 hours of coaching, like every single week, right? And we're plopping those videos into AI. It's like, all right, give me snippets that we think will go viral. You know, so we're using that.
Which one's that? Opus?
Opus clips, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then we're using AI for taking, like, transcribing the notes from the course or from the calls and putting them into Go High Level so people can do a keyword search now. Like, hey, I want to search for all the calls that do this, so we can do that now, only because we have AI. I'm using Fathom for every single one of my meetings. And so, like, before we had to write down all the action items. Now, with AI, Fathom is taking notes of all the action items, and then using Zapier, I just shoot it from Fathom into Asana. So now, after every meeting, all my action items are now on my to-do list.
Nice.
Automatically, right? So, yeah, I mean, we're becoming way more efficient just using AI.
I love that. That's cool. How are you looking at deals right now? How do you evaluate deals? That's always an interesting one. How do you decide what to go for and what to not go for?
Well, at the moment, you're talking about real estate deals?
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm not buying any real estate. So when I was saying shutting down the brokerage was the hardest thing to do at the time,
Yeah.
last year we stopped buying houses.
Right.
So that's the new hardest thing to do, right? Because that's your identity. So we're not looking at deals right now. Now, look, something comes across my desk and it's a good area and I'm buying it for 55, 60 cents on the dollar, we'll buy it, right? Like, sure. It's a no-brainer, right? Good area, good discount, we'll buy it. But for the most part, we're not buying anything right now because our core focus is building a sales training organization that's going to be the biggest in the country, which will by default be the biggest in the world, right? So, like, that's our focus, and anything that deviates from that is a distraction. So everything has to be, does this help me become a bigger sales training organization that I could eventually sell if I wanted to? So real estate,
that's a sacrifice.
That's a sacrifice, right? You know, so like there was something I read on Facebook was that, it was funny, I found it here, a Facebook of all places, right? Was that until priority number 1 is complete, priority number 2 is just a distraction. And it's hard because priority 2 always feels really important. But yeah, like we feel we have everything it takes to be the biggest and best in the world. So now we just got to execute.
Take me through the decision framework for that one, to like decide to leave like real estate just completely for what it is.
So I'll go with the positive and I'll go with the identity stuff.
Sure.
Right. So the positive is Cameron Herold wrote a book called Vivid Vision, right? So this is December of 23. And I sit down and I write out my vision, right? So where do I want to be December 26th? And my vision December 26th is we've been able to sell the company, right? And so I write down what the company's going to look like December 26th, but then all the things that happen along the way so that we can do that, so we can execute that plan. And as I was writing that all out, real estate was not on any of the pages. It just wasn't, right? And so sitting down for a couple of weeks, because, you know, December is a slower time, for a couple of weeks, just planning out my vision, what this looks like, gave me a crystal clear idea of where real estate fit in. So then, logically, rationally, this is the right thing to do. But just because it's the right thing to do doesn't mean it's the easy thing to do. And this is where it gets hard, right? Because my identity is real estate. Like, I bought my first property in 2005, right? Became a realtor in 2007, working with banks, and then started buying properties in 2012, wholesaling in 2014, going hard in 18, have a podcast that's all about real estate. It was pretty hard to shut that down because the questions, the internal self-talk is, what are they going to say?
Mm-hmm.
What are they going to say when you're not around? What are they going to say on social media, right? Like, oh, Steve doesn't have what it takes. Steve couldn't cut it. Steve took the easy way out. Those, and also remember, like, my thing is, like, I don't quit. I will persevere. So now we also got to deal with, like, my own internal identity of, like, I never quit. But then you go back to, like, well, what are we trying to accomplish? So we got to get rid of this identity, and we just have to have a different identity. I'm not sitting here and telling you it was easy. I'm just saying that's what we had to do to get where we are today.
It's always a funny one. I talked to a guy who had his leg blown off from in the military, and it's like, what do you do now, right? Because you're this big dude in the military, and now you're not that dude anymore. Like, where does the identity come from? Mm-hmm. How did you do it? How do you redesign something that you're building for? I don't know. Was it 30 years back then?
I mean, it's the same thing, right? Just remembering. One of the things that I think most entrepreneurs struggle with is remembering why you started.
Yeah.
We all struggle with that, right? Because when we start, I want time freedom, financial freedom, do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, so on, right? Like, this is what we say. But then when we get into business, not knowing anything, by the way, we get into business like, oh man, Quentin's doing this, right? This investor's doing that. This guy owns this many doors. This guy has this big podcast. This guy has this family office. This guy's doing this. And we're playing this massive comparison game, and we're comparing ourselves to everybody. And we've got so much desire, so much like envy or jealousy or whatever it is, but we're always measuring how we are short of this other person, right? But then you go back to, why did you start? You didn't start to play the comparison game. You didn't start to get this many doors. You didn't start to have this much in capital under management, right? It wasn't any of those things. You started because you wanted to control your time, your money, your energy, your relationships. Mm-hmm. So you remember why you started. Then you go back to, like, well, if I do this, will this help me accomplish that? If the answer is yes, then everything else is just noise.
It's easy to lie to yourself about that. Like, is this getting me closer to my goal? There's always a way to...
Exactly.
No, for sure. Sacrificing in that sense is a tough one to, like, be rational about it. For sure, yeah. I hear what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Sales then, the platform. Take me through it.
So we have a couple of different things, right? We have everything for free. We have, my Instagram at steve.trang. Bunch of good free stuff there. That's not just me saying it. We get a lot of views there. We have the Disruptors podcast. We have the Close My Sales podcast. Close My Sales podcast ran by Ian. He's just down the hall. He's just a badass when it comes to sales. So that's all the free stuff, right? We have the Objection Proof Selling Facebook group. And then if someone wants a little bit more, Ian has you have an opportunity to work with Ian. If you got a team, you can work with me, right? Where I help organizations not just train their sales team, but also build a kind of company where you can identify high talented salespeople. You can recruit them. They want to work for you. You can train them, onboard and manage them, retain them. So we have a whole platform around that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people can work with us, whether through free or through paid.
What's the vision?
And I'd argue our free stuff is better than most of other people's paid stuff.
Okay, I hear you. What's the vision with the platform? What's the vision with the platform, the sales platform? You say you want to be the biggest in the country. What would that entail? What would that look like?
So for us, I got an appraisal on my company, right? Which is interesting because I never thought that was necessary, but I did because I'm offering stock options within our organization. Mm-hmm. And so with that appraisal, one of the things that was cool is you put in comps, like here are some other companies I think my company is comparable to. And they talk about multipliers is how they appraise the value of a company. And the math basically worked out. If I want to be a $100 million company, which I don't know of any sales training organization that has sold for that much, if I wanted that, then to get there, I basically need to do $1 million a month in profits, right? And then, looking at a profit margin business, about 40%, I got to do about $2.5 million a month in revenue. So then how do I get to $2.5 million a month in revenue? Well, I'm going to start getting business from Fortune 500 companies, right? We're going to start cold calling. We're going to start getting into C-level meetings, right? That's what we're going to have to start doing. We're going to have to start offering bundles with licenses. Like that's what Grant Cardone does, right? At a company, you pay for this many seats. This is how many logins you get. So how we get there is we're going to have to start talking to some big companies with some very deep pockets. Fortunately, we have relationships and connections that allow that to happen. But that's how we're going to get there.
Exciting. That's fun.
Yeah.
I love that. What's the difference between this is a good one. The difference between a good and a great salesperson from your perspective, from having trained so many people? The number one and the number two.
I would say the difference between the good and great, there's a few different things. The biggest thing is, are they coachable and hungry, right? Like if you look at, professional sports, you could take two different athletes, and the difference between the first guy and the second guy, to the eye, you really can't tell, right? But one's willing to go to practice. One's willing to watch game film. One's willing to eat differently. One's willing not to go out clubbing at night, right? One's willing to not smoke weed, right, during the regular season. If you look at that, two exact same people, one's going to crush the other guy. There's no doubt about it, right? Maybe after a month, not so much. Maybe after a year, you'll notice some differences. After 10 years, one guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. One guy is just going to be sitting on the bench, right? So if you look at that, same thing here in sales. The guy is willing to put in the work, willing to train on himself, willing to role play, willing to do call reviews. That's what separates that guy from everybody else. A guy that's average, who puts in the work, will crush a guy who is a naturally gifted person who doesn't put in the work. We saw something just this past weekend. It was really cool. One of our clients, one of his sales guys locked up 8 houses under contract last week, right? That's pretty awesome. Pretty remarkable, right? But what's going on? He's on training calls multiple times a week. We do call review every single week, right? We're watching game film because that's what call reviews are. Call reviews is basically just watching game film. We're literally doing game film every week for an hour. Imagine if someone was doing game film review with you every week for an hour. How quickly would you get better? So the difference between the great ones from the good ones, are the ones that are coachable and hungry. Yeah,
for sure. If you had like 24 hours to like train someone who's like not into sales, what's the fundamentals? What's the first 5 principles, for example? Just the core.
First 5 principles, you got to see them where you got to learn how to talk to another human being so that you understand what they're saying, because the greatest human need is to be seen, heard, and feel validated and appreciated. So how do you communicate to another human being? This is what we were talking about empathy earlier. How can you communicate with another human being so they feel seen, feel heard, and feel appreciated? That's number 1. Number 2, you got to follow a process. If you don't have a process, the prospect will deviate you from your process and you'll lose the sale. So you have to have a process you're willing to commit to. Number 3, the two things I'm looking for on top of what I was saying about coachable and hungry, empathetic and assertive. If you can be empathetic and assertive, you'll win, right? If you're aggressive, you'll lose. Aggressive is I won't take no for an answer, right? So if you can be assertive and empathetic, you'll win. Let's see what else was there. Other things I'm looking for. I think we talked about. Did we talk about coachable and hungry? I think we did, right? So, what are other things I'm looking for? Got 24 hours to train a guy. How to get the other person to see the difference between what success looks like after we work together and how awful things are today. If we can clearly demonstrate how much things suck today and how awesome everything's going to be, right? It's that gap right, that gets people to take action. So helping them to extract that information and then replay that as a movie back to the prospect. And then, I had something for a fifth one on my mind. Let's see. Seeing the difference. Dang it. There was a fifth one. It was right there, but I was talking, I lost it.
No, these were good though. That's I hear what you're saying for sure. Definitely the latter one. It's like you went through the Sam Ovens training by chance, just back in the day. Sam Ovens.
Sam Evans? No, I never went through Sam Evans. Heard great, wonderful things about him, but never went through the Sam Evans training. That was before I really went to. Go ahead.
No, that's like the core principle he pushes, like creating that gap and making that. That's like the core of his sales training for sure. Product and memory. Yeah, that's a good one. I love that. You'd say right now, like the risk you're taking with developing the sales platform and just leaving real estate for what it is, that's the biggest risk you ever took in your career?
I would say it's the biggest risk. It's not the biggest risk. I would say probably the biggest risk, looking back, would probably be starting the brokerage. Because that's when I signed a big lease that was personally guaranteed, and I incurred a lot of overhead. So that was probably the biggest risk, because like now, everything I'm doing now, the overhead I have, if things like, let's say we get hit by an electromagnetic pulse tomorrow, right? Power grid goes down, and we can't function, I can get my overhead down pretty low pretty fast, right? Today with my business. When I had the brokerage, I had a stupid amount of overhead, all these different compliance stuff, software, reviews, and all these other things. So that was way riskier than what I'm doing now.
Just a walk in the park right now.
I mean, yeah, if things go to crap, right, I can pivot. I'm a lot more nimble today than I was back then.
Awesome. I love that. On the podcast, real quick, closing. What have you learned from doing it for almost 7 years now? What's the main takeaway from that?
The two biggest things, it gives you way more credibility and authority than you deserve, because it opens a lot of doors. I would say that's probably the biggest thing I learned. And then I've got to create some really cool friends. I got to connect with people that I never would have been able to connect with otherwise. So I think those are some big things. And then, one of the things people talk about is being consistent. I was told when I started, if you're going to do it, you got to commit to it. You got to be as consistent as possible, and I took that to heart. I mean, I want to say we've missed, in coming up on 7 years now, maybe 10 or 12 episodes, but I think we've recorded like just about every week for almost 7 years.
You're going to keep doing it?
Yeah. I mean, it's Disruptors now. It's not Real Estate Disruptors. So, yeah, absolutely.
I love it, man. That's dope. What's this year going to be like for you? What's on the roadmap on the short term?
I think we're going to really get cold traffic figured out. I mean, we have cold traffic just plays with your heart, because like it'll do well and then nothing, and then it doesn't do well. It'll do well, it doesn't do well. But I think we're going to figure it out, because we got, the right people managing it now. I was doing it for a bit last year. So I think cold traffic is going to work out. And once it does, so once the paid marketing works out, I really do feel like sky's the limit, because that's the one area that we have not thrived in.
Thanks for listening to the Quinn podcast. If you enjoyed it, you can go to quinnpodcast.com to check out all of the previous episodes. quinnpodcast.com.